put it up on the YouTubes.
Cool.
Just waiting for it to actually do that. It says it's trying to. So it says it's trying to do all the stuff.
Hey, I can see us.
Well, that's good.
Hey, I can see us.
Hey, I can hear us.
Yeah, there's quite a bit of
Well, that's
delay
good.
there.
Let me see if I can. If I close out of this, if it keeps.
Hey, I can see us.
Hey, I can hear us. Where's that loop back coming from?
Yeah, there's quite a bit of
Well, that's
delay
good.
there.
Let me see if I can.
If I
You're
close
hearing
out
that?
of this-
You're hearing
Hey, I can see us.
Hey, I can hear us. Where's that loop back? So much for that.
Yeah, there's quite a bit of delay. Inputs, loopbacks, mute. Okay. All that's muted.
So I'm going to say something right now, and let's see if it comes back and blows me up in the face. I think we're okay. At least I think we are. Let me just turn this up, see if it pops back through. It's just a bunch of us staring. Yep. It's there. We're doing it. And I'm going to record. Like, I'm literally recording this from, like, multiple sources because I want to make sure I'm not screwing this up.
Recording in progress.
Okay. You ready to get this started? Now I can't hear you. Are you muted?
All right.
Okay. We ready?
Finally. Yeah, we're
Yep.
ready. We got it.
Here we go. And that's why you can't always we'll do one more. And that's why you can't always rely on your co-host. What is going on, everybody? This is the Cover Band Confidential Podcast, the podcast for cover band musicians and band leaders to learn how to rock more and suck less in Atlanta, Georgia. I'm Adam Johnson, and this week we have a very special guest coming to us all the way from Cleveland, Ohio, one of our top-tier patrons and coaching people and all-around interesting dude, Creston Heltzel from Alt95. Welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks, man. Happy to be here.
Thank you for being here because it literally would have not been a show if I didn't have a co-host. I mean, I can only do this part for so long without needing somebody to like say something. So thank you very much for being here.
Yeah, for sure.
So for those people who don't know you or may not have gone through the two-part coaching series part of the conversation we've had on the show, can you give the folks out there a little introduction of who you are, where you came from, what you're doing, and how you ended up here?
Yeah, for sure. So my name's Creston Heltzel. Like Adam said, I live in Cleveland, the Mistake by the Lake, and I I play in cover bands because it's fun when I'm not working. How did I get here though? I mean, like most people, right? Teenager, get your first guitar. It's mainly to meet girls.
Yep.
Got mixed results.
Same.
It did eventually meet my wife though. So, and she enjoys it. So she likes to sing pretty well. So we get to do that together. But, went through high school, started hanging out in, budget recording studios in Youngstown, Ohio. It's about an hour south of here.
Mm-hmm.
And, recording on, Tascam 8 tracks and, 4 tracks and stuff like that. Went to school in Nashville, lived there for a while.
So
built a
wait,
couple
where did you go to
studios.
school in Nashville?
I went to SAE.
Oh, okay. Of the many like
um,
music industry schools you could have gone to, that is one of them.
Yeah, and at the time, there weren't that many. There was the Recording Workshop in Chillicothe, Ohio, which is a little ways south of here.
Mm-hmm.
Crass was around at the time, the conservatory in Arizona. Full Sail was just kind of picking up steam.
Yep.
But yeah, so I went to SAE and, went to school, interned, worked a staff position after internships while working at Guitar Center, sleeping like 2 hours a night. And, I got kind of lucky when I was working at Guitar Center. This dude came in like 5 minutes to 9 and I'm vacuuming the pro audio department. And I'm just like, really, dude? Like, come on. But, ended up becoming a good friend and went from being a good friend to being a business partner. And, he was an Aussie that was, moving his label to Nashville, small indie label with a couple of artists, and ended up helping him out, back in Sydney. We built a studio about a half hour outside of Nashville, in Arrington, Tennessee, which is famous for having Kix Brooks of Brooks and Dunn. His winery is there.
Nice.
And yeah, man, and just worked in the industry for a while. Eventually, kind of got burnt out. It's not what you think it's going to be. I think a lot of the time, you think you're going to work on all these great projects and stuff, and you gotta pay the bills somehow. So you end up working on anybody who will come in and pay. So, but came back to Ohio, and after a couple of years, just really started to get the itch to play again and to play out, and started putting bands together with my little brother, and yeah, man, just kind of been doing it for fun and whatever. And I mean, at the end of the day, I think like most of us, music is life, right? It's a constant, So if I can play with some cool guys and have a good time and make a little bit of money, and that's kind of the deal. So yeah, man, that's the quick rundown.
Well, yeah, I mean, the very similar kind of experiences coming from trying to be a person who makes it in the quote unquote industry, and then seeing the industry for what it actually is, and realizing maybe I don't want to make it in this industry. And because yeah, I like I said, I've said it multiple times. I served my nickel in Nashville, and saw it for what it was, and it can be a place with a lot of cool opportunities, and it can also be an absolutely desolate, depressing place to live. So I understand why people want to go there, and I also understand why people leave and go do other things. So as far as like music goes, as far as like creating and like that into that field of work.
So, I mean, it initially started playing in original bands like in high school, right? Mm-hmm. And shortly after high school, SAE wasn't the first place I went to college, but it was the first place I didn't drop out.
There you go.
So, but yeah, and so it was, I had to learn. I've always been into computers. I've always been into technology since I was a little kid. My stepdad's a software engineer. I learned BASIC on a Commodore, right? And so as technology started to come more and more into music, whether it, Pro Tools, just digital recording in general, I started to get way more interested in it. And I went from not terribly being satisfied playing in bands, and I had a hell of a lot more fun building websites for my friends' bands, recording my friends' bands, doing stuff like dumping a 4-track, 1 track at a time into Cool Edit Pro.
Oh yeah,
computer
man.
Sound
That was my first DAW was Cool Edit Pro. It was a great program.
I think a lot of people's. Oh yeah, I mean, and then we burn the CDs and print up the labels on a printer and stamp them on, and the whole thing. And I really enjoyed it. So when I went to Nashville, the idea was, maybe I could, intern and work my way into some stuff, and it was cool, man. I mean, I got to go to Australia for 8 months, which was incredible. I got to work with all kinds of cool gear, even after I was out of school, and install large consoles. We had a Neve 8128 at our place in Nashville.
Nice.
Which was cool. It was a weird console, but it was cool. But yeah, that was really it. I did get to work on some cool sessions. I got to be a fly on the wall for some crazy stuff, and I've got stories that I can't share publicly or anything, but it was.
We'll save it for the Patreon.
It was a time. There we go. Yeah. But it was a time, and it was great. That's, I thought maybe I could make a go of it and whatever, but now I still do mix work. Not a ton of it, but I'll do little projects here and there. I was playing in an original band in Cleveland not too long ago called Who Hit Me, and I did a lot of our stuff in terms of like production and mixing and stuff like that, and it serves me well. So get a lot of now I get a lot of live sound gigs.
Yeah.
So I still do a fair bit of that.
And your actual like profession, like your daytime job is what?
I work for a software company.
In what field?
So it started off more on a technical side. I've kind of been moving away from that and more into a like a process engineering and project management kind of stuff, which is cool. It's different, you can't stay stagnant and do the same thing all the time, I guess. So keeps me on my toes.
Nice.
And so it's can't get to work from home.
Yeah,
can't complain.
For sure. And as far as getting into cover bands after all of this other stuff, what was the impetus behind that?
That was really like, I hadn't, when I left Nashville, I sold a ton of gear, because it was at the height of the downturn in like 2008, 2009.
Yep.
Not that many people recording. Not that many people doing a whole heck of a lot. And it wasn't until 2016 when I started gigging again. That was, it was like, I just need to do this. I hadn't really played guitar a lot in those years. Like I always had an acoustic around, just a strum sitting in front of the TV or whatever. But like, I wasn't really serious about it. My chops had gone to crap. And, and I was like, you know what? I had at the time I'd gotten divorced from my first wife, which was just doesn't matter. It was a quick, that was a bad idea kind of thing. And I'm just sitting there like, what am I gonna do with my time? And so I just went to Guitar Center and I picked up like a $500 like modern player telly and a Mustang amp, and I'm like, I want something that kind of does all the things because I don't know what I'm gonna do with this yet. And I just started playing it. And my brother, who's a far better guitar player than I am, who also, so he got the real schooling.
Yeah. But
we were like, dude, let's start a band. Let's start a band like we had when we were in high school, like with our high school buddies. And that's what we did. And we just played a bunch of gigs, and that eventually just kind of came to an end because it was a lot of guys that just. Nobody's really serious about keeping it going. It was like, can we play for a bar tab for our friends and just kind of screw around? I mean, like, we were playing everything from like weird Swedish punk bands to Blondie tunes to the Replacements to the Clash, like just, I mean, all over the map.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It was just like, what do we want to play? And it was fun. And it was after that I started to get a lot more serious, because I was like, you know what, I really want to do this. And I was dating my future, well, I was dating my wife at the time, and her dad is a drummer, and he was like, he had filled in for us on drums in the other band a couple of times, and he was playing with this other group, and he's like, hey man, we need a guitar player, and I'm like, all right. And then it was like off and running, gigging every other weekend, just, you know, sometimes back to back, day after day. And I was just like, I love this. This is great. I don't have to worry about writing songs. I just have to play them and show up and have fun and make music with cool people. So here I am.
Nice.
Still doing it.
Yeah, I mean, I think at some point we kind of get to the realization, like, I just want to do this because it's fun. And then there's the part of it that, like, we want to create, we want to be able to do things, and but also it not completely rule our life and be something that is, like, detrimental to our to our finances and mental health and all of the other things that go along with that. So sometimes it's nice to not rely on your creativity as a way to provide your livelihood. But you know,
for sure. I mean,
I still think it's important for people to treat it like a profession, and I think if you are making more than the bar tab, that is the distinction that you have earned. But yeah, it can be kind of tough reconciling that. I know that, you know, everybody kind of goes through that whole thing. I think you have to. No one under the age of 30 can hear that and go, yes, I understand. I just I feel like you have to take 10 years of just doing, you know, beating your head against the wall before you can be like, okay, maybe there's another way.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. It's sorry, go ahead.
No, it's all good. So how did you run into the podcast then?
So, I ran into the podcast, it wasn't long after y'all started.
Okay.
I was just looking up, I think I was Googling, like, you know, music podcasts or whatever, because I love podcasts.
Mhm.
I will listen to podcasts, like, all day, all the time, going to bed at night, while I'm working, whatever. I'm a big fan of long-form discussion, regardless of the topic, as long as it's an interesting one.
Yeah.
And so I started listening to y'all's podcast because I was like, I listened to one episode and I couldn't tell you which one it was or whatever, but it was back when you guys had just gotten Chauvet as a sponsor for a little while, so it was a while back, and I was like, hey, I'm in a cover band. I'm like, I like the band I'm in. I think there's things that we could improve upon. There's other, you know. And I was like, this is great. And I just started listening. And I was like, here's some guys. Pardon me. Here's some guys that are talking about stuff that I'm into, that have more experience than I do, that seem to be, you know, that are more successful at it. And I think I can learn something. So that was the, you know. And I have.
Yeah.
And that was the cool thing, is like, you know, I'd hear things and learn things and hear suggestions and be able to actually go and put those things into practice and see results.
Yeah.
And I think that was really cool.
Well, so, you know, thinking about that timeline, you hopped on as a patron fairly recently. So what was the impetus of going, well, I've been listening long enough and now I want to actually like shift gears and kind of be more involved in the community on that front? Like, what was the impetus for that transition?
Yeah, so initially it was so just after let's see, I think it was it 2021? Yeah, it was last year. It was around June of last year. I ceased playing in the band that I had been playing in. I was playing in a band here in town called The Goods. You know, your basic 90s, right? Drums, acoustic, electric, bass. That was, you know, real great band. Excellent, you know, excellent guys, excellent experience. They're real good. I still go see them play. I'm still great friends with the singer. And But I had some stuff going on in my own life, just with some family stuff and whatever, and death in the family and some crazy stuff, and I had to cancel a bunch of dates.
Mm-hmm.
And that kind of turned into, well, if you can't really, do you care if we bring this other guy back in that used to play? And I'm like, dude, I couldn't tell you when I could be back.
Yeah.
I couldn't tell, and I'm like, you guys run with it. I'm good, right? And since then, I've sat in with them and stuff, and but I'd gotten out of it, and I'm like, all right, well, I want to put my own band together, and I want to do a cover band the way that you guys talk about doing it.
Mm-hmm.
I want people on in-ears. I want tracks. I want crowd. Not that you have to have those things, right? But like, I want to do it in a more professional way rather than just a group of guys that are like, oh, we'll put a Facebook page up and never post anything on it and spend $5 on the ad buy for each gig and whatever.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Maybe we'll make $300. Maybe we won't. You know what I mean? I'm like, you know what? I'm not an incredible guitar player. I'm pretty good. I think I have the talent to do something and get out there and maybe do something different. And that was when I first joined as a patron, like at the $5 whatever
Mm-hmm.
it is, right? Because I'm like, I want to talk to people in the Slack channel,
Yeah.
right? And I wanted to hear the members only, no pun intended, section content, and hear what you guys were talking about off of the podcast.
Yeah.
And that quickly turned into like, you know what, this is really worth it, and I'm getting a lot of good stuff out of this. And I'm the kind of person that if I really like something, I will support it in any way I can. Whether that's a friend's band, a podcast, anything like that, you know? So that was really it. I felt like I was getting a lot of great value out of it. And I thought for what y'all were providing me, right? And I mean that in terms of like you and Dan, but also everybody in the Slack channel
Mm-hmm.
was invaluable.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, you know what? $30. I've spent that kind of money on stupider stuff. So
Fair enough. I think we all have.
oh yeah,
So
especially in my 20s.
oh yeah, man. So the thing about being at the top tier of the Patreon is that you get some perks. One of them being the band coaching, and for those of you who didn't know, potentially co-hosting the show is one of those perks as well. So you're getting like the 1-2 punch. You're getting the full treatment. So, but
I didn't know about the co-hosting thing.
Yeah,
that was a surprise, or maybe I don't know. That was a surprise. I was like, hell yeah, dude, why not?
Yeah. So the as far as the coaching goes, so like talk to us about Alt95. Talk about kind of talking to your guys about getting coaching, because I feel like that could potentially be like a hard sell for a band that's just getting started. Like, why should we listen to these guys or anything like that? So how did that whole conversation go over?
Yeah. So I kind of sprung it on him, to be honest with you. I was like, I had told the guys about the podcast. I've been telling people about the podcast for a couple of years. And especially people I play in a band, I'm like, you guys got to listen to this. This is great. They talk about this. They're talking about, that issue we ran into with this, that, or the other thing. They talked about that. Like, here's a different perspective. And so I just kind of sprung it on them. I was like, hey guys, a podcast I talk about all the time. Do you want to go on there and do like a coaching session, and we can talk about like, we're a new band and what we're doing and how we're going about it, and get the take of some guys that are really making their way with this, right? And they're like, yeah, why not, right? And they were pretty open to it. And I think part of that is that, like, I don't want to say that I have a dictatorial attitude in bands, right? But I don't think that bands function well as democracies to a certain degree. I think that you do need to have band leaders, and while everybody's opinion and desires and everything is all valid, I think that it can get difficult especially when people are friends, right?
Yeah.
Or in the case of my drummer and I, right, he's my father-in-law.
Yeah, like literal family.
Right, exactly. And so, it's I feel like the outside perspective was really important, from other guys that are doing it, because like, sure, we could talk to other bands that we're friends with in town, right?
Mm-hmm.
But there aren't really a lot of other bands that are, I want to say, up and coming around here that are approaching things the way that we are.
Yeah.
Right. There's, we've played with bands and filled in with bands that, the band that Brad was previously in, they don't really do the tracks so much. Brad would use an SPD with them and some drum samples, and they've since done a little more tracks, but they're more of a run and gun kind of rock and roll, let's turn it up and kick it out, right? Kind of vibe.
Yeah.
And there's other bands that we know and we're friends with that we could talk to about stuff, but like, there wasn't anybody that had really been going about it the way that we were, which was, Brad and I started talking about this, putting this band together almost a year ago now. It would be September of last year.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when we found our bass player. And it was literally like, hey, man, yeah, that's great. Let's get you out. Let's audition. I'm going to be gone on my honeymoon for a week. I'll hit you up when I'm back and we'll get going. Yeah. Like, so that there wasn't really that many people that I knew of that were like, all right, let's get a logo. What kind of band are we? Let's get the website up. Let's get the socials up. Let's start like really getting the branding and what this is together up front, right? So that we have something that if we want to go book a gig, we can present to people and say, hey, this is us.
Yeah.
Right. And so I think that was really valuable to do the coaching. And I think the guys thought so too. I mean, I think you could probably guess what I think one of the most valuable things that we took out of that coaching session was.
Yeah, so the thing that I really wanted to ask you is that, if for anybody who hasn't listened to both of those episodes, you should, because I think there's good stuff for anybody who's trying to do what we're doing. It kind of, I wouldn't necessarily call it a pile-on, but like your sensibilities, your preferences, your kind of the way that you viewed things was kind of scrutinized, and I wouldn't call it a pile-on necessarily, but like there was some acknowledgement of some tension about the way that things had been kind of discussed previously. So, from your end, how did that feel? Where outside people were kind of validating something that was contrary to what you would prefer, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, so for anybody that hasn't gone and listened to that, just the real quick and short version of it, all the parts in the song and so on and so forth, and everybody was like, the big thing that was given to me was, every time you ask yourself these things, right, you got to ask yourself, does the audience care?
Mm-hmm.
And to me, like, you can call it a pile-on. I mean, I tend to take criticism pretty well, especially if it's well placed, right? If it's if there's validity to it, and there's validity to that, you know what I mean? And in retrospect, since the coaching sessions and really kind of taking on that mantra, it has helped enormously.
I think it definitely helps clarify,
sure.
with people who are kind of analytical or wanting to get certain things a certain way. It is a good mantra to kind of like help make decisions quickly. And trust me, nobody understands that more than I do, because I've definitely side of that and asked those questions and gotten totally in the weeds over things. But it seemed like it did help put some stuff into focus for you guys and put you on the right track to prep for this first show that happened a couple of weeks ago. So You guys got a chance to talk and sort some things out, and then you had a couple of weeks to prep, and then the show actually happened. So how did that whole post-coaching sesh kind of play out before the gig?
Yeah, I think that like as we were prepping for it, we had I think two rehearsals between the coaching session and the gig, and we've had a total of 2 gigs since. We just had our second one this past weekend, and I think that more of the coaching session and more of the advice from that made it into the second gig than the first. But in terms of the first gig, I think what it really helped was really just get us to focus on playing as a band and forgetting all the other nonsense. And it really helped that it was a summer festival for a big church parish, and it was very pro, huge stage, line array, lots of subs, pro sound, right? We just went in, set up, good to go. And it wasn't a long gig. I think we played like an hour and 15 minutes or something. We were opening for a Queen tribute act. And so I think that it helped us relax. And the first gig wasn't great. It wasn't bad, but we were shaking the dust off, you know? I mean, it was our bass player had done some fill-in gigs recently with his old band. Before that, Brad, our drummer, that dude is like, he seems to be the on-call drummer for most of this town for some reason. I think it's just because he's good and he can learn songs really quick. He's great. So they'd been playing a lot. I had not been playing a lot. I had done a couple fill-in gigs over the past year, but play at church on Sundays and stuff. But that's not, that's a heck of a lot different. Praise and worship gigs a heck of a lot different than getting up on stage in front of a bunch of strangers and playing cover band tunes and stuff like that. But yeah, I think it really helped with our nerves, and we repeated that. It has become a mantra in the band that does the audience care. It really has. It's, so much so that I thought, like I'm saying it to people. I'm like, dude, does the audience care? No. All right, cool. Let's, So, yeah, that was, I think a lot more of it made its way into the second gig, and in preparation for that.
Yeah. Well, what were the main takeaways after the first gig wraps? Like, what were the things that you're like, all right, these are the things we need to tweak in order to make this second one kind of, count or put us in the right spot?
I think some of the big takeaways from the first one really were preparation and trying to work together a little more, trying to make sure that we're running songs more and getting through them and not getting hung up on stupid little things, right? Because we run tracks, right? Any of us can log into Karaoke version and download whatever version of something we want. For anybody that's not used karaokeversion.com, I think it's karaoke-version.com. You can go in and buy a backing track, and you can literally go in and mute and solo like the different sections that you want. And so for us, it's really great because we tune down a half step for the sake of our singer, and in long gigs, and for the sake of us, I'm not a singer. I'm a terrible singer. Bring it down a whole step. Whatever. Like, make it easier for me to hit it. But because we have that, right, I can just go in there and be like, oh, I want to practice this song. So I'll just mute out all the guitars, and it takes like 5 seconds to download the MP3, pull it up, and I'm on a Helix and everything. So just going into my interface anyway, and I can sit here in headphones and practice day and night, right? And because we all have the ability to do that, and I'm big on making the differentiation between practice and rehearsal. Yeah. We needed to spend more time at rehearsal rehearsing, right? Things like getting our transitions between songs to be quicker, right? We tried it at the first gig where it's like, okay, first song ended, we got like an 8 count, next song kicks in. And there were some moments where things got a little hairy. And there were definitely some times where it was like, did we just skip a chorus and now we're off the track and somebody's got to kill it? Like, that kind of stuff. So like Brad and I are used to playing at tracks because of church.
Yeah.
Right. Because that's super common. We're used to having a voice in our ear telling us chorus 2, 3, 4, all that. The other guys, not so much. And so we really needed to work on getting the transitions together and really making that happen to keep the show moving, and just moving from song to song as quick as possible. And really, that didn't happen so much in the first gig. And so we learned that. We learned a lot about really what we each need to listen to in our mixes.
Mm-hmm.
Listening to your in-ear mix on a stage versus in a basement with a drum shield around the drummer and everybody's like real tight together. There's a lot of bleed, even with the shield, and it kind of changes things. And so I know that I at least learned a lot of things little things that I need to do in my in-ear mix, to make sure I'm hearing what I need to hear.
Yeah.
And I think that, our bass player, Chris, he and I both he's using a Stomp XL. I'm using a full Helix.
Mm-hmm.
I think we both learned a lot about dialing in our tones a little better. That was one of the things I was absolutely terrified of, was that, all the advice I took and the things I tried at home to make sure that everything sounded good was going to sound terrible when it got pumped full volume through a large PA system.
Yeah.
And luckily, I asked the sound guy, the guy's like, how did it sound? Right? Is it, is it terrible? He's like, yeah, it's a little thin. It's a little this, a little. I'm like, all right. So, definitely some takeaways from that. But I mean, I think by and large, we just kind of went through it, and it was like, whatever happened. There was an audience. Did they care if we sucked or not, or if we skipped a chorus, or if we missed a bridge, or no? I don't think anybody cared. And I think it was good for us to get out there and have a first gig that went kind of halfway really well and halfway not so well.
Mm-hmm.
And I think one of the big things that got picked up from that gig was our singer, between that gig and the second gig, got way better at interacting with the audience. And I think part of that was the second gig was a much smaller venue. It wasn't outside. It's not a huge stage. People are a lot closer. There's a little more of an intimate vibe,
Mm-hmm.
but like he got way better at interacting with the crowd and really trying to draw people into the performance.
Yeah.
And so I think that was a huge takeaway too.
Well, he has a pretty
our
good
stage
question.
banter did not get better.
Yeah, we talked about that in the Slack channel. You do have to kind of like work through that. But like your singer had asked like a question like, how as a vocalist do you find the win in singing songs like that? And I think that is something that does take a bit of an adjustment for people who aren't accustomed to that kind of work. And it is the difference between like, are you an artist or are you an entertainer? And being an entertainer requires a certain set of things that artists either don't worry about or haven't considered before. So, and yeah, it's the energy thing that we've been talking about. Last week's YouTube video was talking about being the thermostat, not the thermometer. Well, musicians are notoriously bad about being thermometers, and or being the thermostat, but like in a bad way. Like, I'm going to punish the people who are
not
here.
reading the room.
Yeah. So, and those things just take time. And like you guys had said, like you're still trying to learn how to like play in a group together with these people, and but it's always interesting to see how things go, especially when you're going into it kind of dry as a new group, and not necessarily like new players or beginners, but like you gotta build this dynamic. You've got to build this you and I have had conversations offline about some stuff, and like there's still things that are needing to be adjusted or tweaked or added or taken out. So I mean, it's a constant process. There's going to always be somewhere to go, and luckily about the size of the the placeholder on top of the video that you're trying to link up with your Ableton session. There's definitely room for minutia.
Right. Yes.
Once you have the systems in place.
Yeah, for sure. There absolutely is. Yeah, it means that, the first gig we didn't do anything crazy. The second gig, we brought out a Mac Mini and hooked it up to the X32 and popped open a Pro Tools session and recorded everything. Start to get to do stuff like that once you've got, things in place, Once you get a solid 3, and that was kind of a big thing is like, it just felt like this rush to get a solid like 3 hours worth of music, for 3 sets. Right. And I feel like now that we've done that, we can really start to focus in on very specifically, like, all right, what songs do we want? Like we have a gig next Saturday. We're playing a private party with another band in town that we're friends with. Which is I gotta shout them out because they have one of the best names for a cover band ever. They're called Tarp because it's a cover.
I get it. They're a cover. They're a cover band.
Exactly. Yeah. But anyway,
clever girls.
Yes. But yeah, we're doing a private party with these guys, and so we're already like, all right, we got all these other songs, right? We've played through them. We've played through them a million times. There's no need to go back and rehash, did you nail this lick? Did you nail this bass part? Did you drop this beat? Are you on key? Are you like, we all know, because we recorded the last gig and we can all listen to it. We all know what we need to work on. There's no hiding it, right? So we're very deliberately being like, all right, here's what we're going to do. We're going to add these 3 songs. We're going to change the key on these 2. Isaac, our singer, being a Nashville guy as well, put up Nashville number charts in our Google Drive and was like, here's how I want to try these. So we were like very specific. All right, we're going to do these 2 songs. We're going to change up the key on them. We're going to do this other song. That's what we're going to add in rehearsal next week. And that's what we're going to spend the whole rehearsal on, you know? So it's, we are starting to be able to get into some of the smaller, like, let's focus.
Yeah. Well, and I'll say this, I don't know how we could get this out to folks, but the back channel that your band had with like the learn charts and the progress deals was so thorough and so well organized. I mean, that was like the first thing that Dan and I like jumped out. I was like, man, these guys are, they've got their act together and in a way that like I hadn't even ever considered. So you taught me something in that I might be able to, use for my project. So, you guys definitely have that dialed in.
Right on.
Well, and once you kind of get the systems done, you'll be able to do that faster. Because you have the systems in place. It's just like anything else. You did the hard part up front.
Yeah, it's felt like a long process. It has felt like a long time of waiting to be like, damn it, can we just get out and play gigs? And because we all come from that, we've all been there before, before like there were modelers and in-ears and, definitely played my share of gigs where we didn't even have monitors. And, that kind of stuff where you just like, I'm going to throw up my amp, kick on the distortion pedal, and, we're going to do this. I don't care if it's a Metal Zone sound or a Klon sound or whatever, right? It doesn't matter. We're just going to play.
Yeah.
Right. And so there was definitely like a, can we just get to that point? But I think that doing all that prep work, was invaluable. We've got a massive backlog of songs that we basically combed like the Billboard Top 100 for like from like 1990 to like 2010 or something like that, and just created this massive backlog. And we try to do things, if anybody else, because our drummer Brad has worked for software companies mostly his entire life. He's more of a networking guy, but there's a methodology called Scrum or Agile, and it's a whole way of working on projects, and one of its big things is you want to do the minimum change possible. It's all about the smallest incremental change, one thing at a time. Change this thing, get that to work. Okay, now move to and so we've kind of been approaching it that way, and I think that you're absolutely right. It allows us now to be like, we have the systems in place for how this works. Let's roll.
Yeah.
What's the next thing?
Yeah, it will absolutely serve you guys in the future. You just got to get the plane under you, and once that's done, I mean, you guys will be unstoppable. At least that's my opinion.
That's the plan, man.
Yeah.
That's what we hope.
For sure.
Yeah.
So tell the folks about Cleveland, because everything I know about Cleveland, Ohio, I learned from the Drew Carey show. So I feel like I might be missing some stuff.
Well, if you know the Drew Carey show, the theme song, the very first thing that he sings in the theme song is "Moon Over Parma."
Mm-hmm.
I'm in Parma right now.
Okay.
A suburb of Cleveland. So there's literally soon there will be a moon over Parma out my window. But Cleveland's a great town, man. Historically, people have been down on Cleveland for plenty of good reasons. Our sports teams are pretty terrible, except for 1 year. The Cavs did really well.
Yeah.
And then LeBron was like deuces. And so that happened. But it gets a lot of crap. But I will say this. There is a killer music scene in Cleveland. The cost of living is really low. There's great parks. You're right on the lake. I mean, you got Lake Erie right there. You want to go see. I mean, it gets a lot of crap. Sometimes deservedly so, but it's a pretty good place to live. The winters get a little rough, but great scene, lots of bars.
Yeah,
it's an old steel town. I mean, so there are tons of bars and a lot of great neighborhoods, and you're never short of places to play, and Great original band scene, great cover band scene, everything from acoustic duos to bigger bands that do some crazy stuff. So
So
I mean,
is
I don't know.
the pay okay? Like, would you say it's in line with other areas? Like, I mean, I would consider Cleveland a big-ish city. Not necessarily on the level of like Chicago necessarily, but like, it's got a pretty large metropolitan area. Like what is the economics of music there? So
for cover bands, it varies wildly.
Okay.
And at the end of the day, it's really about how much booze can you sell. It really is. I mean, the way a lot of venues operate, even if you've got an inn, right? So like the gig that we just played last week, we played at this place. I don't want to name it because I'm going to talk about money, but we played at this place that the three of us in the band had played at many times before. And it is an incredible venue. It's one of my favorite to play in town. And, what we would normally get paid for that kind of gig, we got paid a little bit less, but it was like a foot in the door thing. And it's not because of who we were, even though we knew people there and we had a history with the place. It was like, hey, your project is new. It's not you that's new. It's your project that's new.
Sure.
Right. And so, it's like we got the gig from a cancellation from another. Oh, dude, we need a guitar player this weekend. Hey, man, I'm not gigging. I can go play. My band won't care.
Yeah.
Right. Or, hey, my band has to cancel because somebody's sick or this, that, or the other thing. Like, can somebody jump in for us? And that all gets worked out in the local Facebook groups and that kind of thing. And, I think most towns are probably like that, but there's a lot of camaraderie. But yeah, so, we took a little less to get our foot in the door, and that's kind of standard fare around here. And I think that most bands, though, it's not difficult to get anywhere between, 6 to 1,000, if you can draw a crowd, right?
Sure.
There are still some places that you play for the door, in which case you really need to draw a crowd. But I think by and large it's I think you could probably make more in bigger areas, but then again, your rent's 3 times as much. So, you know what I mean? Like, I think like most things, it's relative, right?
Yeah.
But I think it's a good scene. I think it's getting better in that department. And I think that the more serious you are about it, you know, you're going to do better in terms of your paycheck.
Yeah.
So
that's fair. Yeah, I mean, we all kind of live in these little bubbles as far as the, you know, the scenes that we're in, and so it's always good to know kind of where everybody is. And I mean, to be perfectly transparent, like in my market for the run-of-the-mill bar gig cover bands, yeah, six to a grand is normal. And there are bands that are making less than that, unfortunately, but there's also bands that are making a lot more because of the fact that they can pull people in. So, you know, it's as different as we all, because I don't know how many times I've heard people go, well, your scene's not like my scene, and then we start talking through things, and you're like, well, nah, actually, they're fairly similar. So
people are people, and bars are bars. I don't, you know, wherever you go, it's I think it's probably going to be pretty similar. And yeah, I mean, it's like that around here too. You know, there's always those few bands in town that have a huge following that always seem to do, you know, a lot better than other ones. But I would say at the bare minimum, this town's, it's kind of like $100 a guy kind of town.
Yeah.
You know, at the lower level of it.
Sure. And as far as like bands in your scene, like who is, and I'm not trying to put people on blast. I'm trying to, like, you know, just bring attention to people. Who would you say, like, in your lane of what it is you guys are trying to do is the benchmark? Who's the band that you guys are kind of like, not necessarily like trying to take out, but like are gunning for the kind of work that they're getting?
You're gonna get me in trouble.
No, you're paying them a compliment.
Yeah, for sure. I'll tell you what. There are a couple bands, and you know what? They're bands that we've all played with, right? And I think that that's a good gauge because, you know, and I'll name our bass player used to be in a band called Billy Likes Soda.
Okay.
If everybody remembers Billy Madison.
Billy likes to drink soda. Miss Lippy's car is green.
Green, yes. And they're really good. They're a little more the aggressive, kind of high energy, you know,
grungier kind of take.
I don't want to say grungier, but
alt rock,
pop punk, very 90s centric, right? You know, that kind of seems to be the thing these days, right? There's, you know, and I think that's just because of, you know, our age.
Yep.
You know, the age group of people playing in cover bands, it's, you know, it was a good decade for music.
Sure.
But those guys are really great. The band that I mentioned before that our drummer now, Brad, and myself both used to play with, the Goods. They tend to do some smaller kind of gigs. We used to play this restaurant like a half hour east of us all the time. And, you know, whether it was in the corner inside or on their back patio, was kind of like a regular gig for us. And so they tend to do a lot of that kind of stuff. And they're really good, you know. They do a great song selection and a little bit of a different vibe because their singer's always playing his acoustic, right? So even if you take a hard rockin' song, like we would do like Are You Gonna Go My Way, right, by Lenny Kravitz, the acoustic is still there. Is there an acoustic in that song on the record? I don't think so, but it was, you know, it was always there. And so it's just a different vibe, right? And the other one is one that our drummer used to play with and that I've filled in with called Bad Juju. And, man, do those guys play like, I don't know that I could handle their schedule, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Like, sometimes they got like 3-show weekends and, man, they're everywhere. But they're good. They got a great guitar player, great drummer, killer front man. You know, their bass player's great, does a good job, you know, managing that band and keeping them gigging. and they're a little more on the hard rock edge.
Yeah.
You're gonna get a little more grunge, and you still get some of the poppy stuff. Good deal of the alt rock. Geez, who else? I don't know. Grunge DNA, I think, would probably be one of our biggest competitors. I don't personally know those guys, but I've seen them play, and they definitely fall more on the grunge side of things. So I think that's kind of those are kind of the guys that we're in league with, and that's why we're trying to find this lane. We're trying to find this niche.
Yep.
Of we do a little bit of the grunge, we do a little of the hard rock, but we also want to be doing the pop and the all those things, right? So adding some Backstreet Boys songs and coming up with medleys and arrangements for some more pop stuff and things like that. Just trying to kind of serve two masters, maybe, I don't know, but find our own unique little lane around all that.
Nice.
We don't want to step on anybody's toes. I'm not trying to take anybody else's gig.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I think there's plenty of bars in town and plenty of places for people to play, and I think that I think those are good bands to look at, and for us to look at and be like, we want to get to that kind of level.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah, and we always talk about abundance, and when you get work, you're not taking work away from somebody else. It's there's plenty for everybody, and it makes like you were saying, guys are willing to jump in and like help out and that kind of thing, and hopefully that sticks. And so when I talk about bands in our scene that have certain things about their show or things that I aspire to, like that's something you should have. You should have groups that you pay attention to, to get ideas for your group and to figure out, where to go next and what's working for them. So, it's a good exercise to just keep an eye on, what's going on around you. So.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's, and we all get out and see these bands too, for the most part. I mean, Friday, our drummer's sitting in with the Bad Juju guys on a gig for them. And, my wife and I are going to drive down. They're playing like an hour away, but we're going to drive down, go see them, get some dinner. Usually somebody hands me an iPad and is like, hey, can you run some? I'm like, pay my bar tab, maybe. I don't know. We'll see. I'm just trying to have fun tonight. But yeah, we all support each other, and I think that's important. I mean, we've said it. It's been said in the Slack chat and stuff. Iron sharpens iron, rising tide lifts all ships. Blah blah. Blah, all that. And it's true. It's absolutely true.
Chris R in the live chat says, "I know Grunge DNA. Those are good guys." You got some
Nice.
folks in the community that are tuning in and
very cool,
dropping in. So I don't want to keep you. We've been at this for a little bit, and I definitely want to thank you for your time and your willingness to step into the shoes of Dan. But if anybody wanted to find out more about you or your band, what would be the best way for them to get in touch?
Yeah, you can find me on Instagram at Creston Guitar, Creston Guitar, all one word. You can find our band, Alt95 Cleveland. Same thing, Facebook, Instagram, alt95cleveland.com. We're trying to book shows for the fall and winter and keep our thing going. And, if you're listening and you're around Cleveland and you see us out or whatever, drop us a line, say hi. We're friendly, I promise. But yeah, man. And I just want to say thank you, and thank you to Dan and also all the guys in the Slack channel, in the Patreon Slack channel. Super supportive group of dudes. What you guys are doing, I think, is a real service to those of us who love to do this and pour a lot of energy and heart into it, and I think it's really cool, man.
Oh, I appreciate that, and you and the guys in this community, make doing this worthwhile. It's a lot of fun, but like I said, I mean, we're learning stuff from everybody, so it's not just like it's not a one-way interaction. Like, we all benefit when we share what we know, and it's hard to get people to talk or to share things because they feel super kind of like worried or precious about the things that they've got, and they don't want to give that up. Chris just said, "Hey, message me on Slack. I have a couple of fall and winter places to direct you to." So we're making dreams happen.
Nice. Hey, shoot me a message, man. That's awesome. Yeah, it's
Very cool. Well, guys, I'm going to go ahead and call it for this week. Big thanks to Creston and the guys at Alt95 for loaning him to me this evening. But that is going to do it for this week. If you have any questions, you can email us, coverbandconfidential@gmail.com. If you want to support us, you can tag us on social media, a merch giveaway. And if you want to support us in any other way, you can do any of the stuff that our buddy Adam from the Van Band is about to tell you. But that's going to do it for this week. In Atlanta, Georgia, I'm Adam Johnson.
And in Cleveland, Ohio, I'm Creston Heltzel.
You have been listening to the Cover Band Confidential podcast for the week of July 15th, 2022. Have an awesome week. And that's how you rock more and suck less.
Nice.
That's how it's done.
Very cool, man.
Yeah, man.
Very cool.
It's funny to get a chance
Great
to...
questions, by the way.
I'm
I
trying.
didn't expect that, man.
I've done this
Great
for a little
questions. Yeah.
bit. I know a thing or two about a thing or two. But the thing that was cracking me up is like all the stuff you were talking about is that like we are in this age of folks that like have this experience where you kind of started on this kind of analog. We were right there at that analog to digital like transition, that drop over. So it's always interesting to hear people talk about that. All right, I'm going to go ahead and end the stream real quick, and I'm going to continue this conversation. Because, yeah, talking about those